All right, Bang Bang. Today is Friday. It is January 20th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. I'm joined by Chicago historian. You've seen him all over your TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I know you have because I have. So his name is Sherman Dilla Thomas. Dilla, welcome to the show, man.
Man, excited to be here. Really geek. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, you're all over the place. I had so the founder of the company, Dave Portnoy, his dad hit me up. He's like, "Hey, have you heard of this guy? I heard him on NPR, and this guy, he's like 85." And I'm like, yeah, I have. And he's like, you got to get this guy in your podcast. I was like, of course, I know I do. So this has definitely been a long time coming. So I'm pumped to have you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Huge fan. That Wait, Don't Tell Me is probably the show the guy heard me on. But I got an NPR segment we do too locally every other week. We drop Chicago facts, and I forget about the demographic of NPR. So I'll be like in a grocery store and be like an 80-year-old dude staring me down. Yeah, but it'll be love. So I appreciate it. I really do.
No, for sure. So tell me how this got started, man. What?
Man, it's I've been telling people lately, like I'm like the Forrest Gump of Chicago history, right? Like just my life landed me in all these particular spots. But while I'm sitting here, it's primarily TikTok. I was an area operator for ComEd, a line worker for ComEd, sitting in the truck during the pandemic. And I started doing history videos because I wanted to bond with my kid. We were making them together at first, but then also I just saw that my kids were spending a lot of time on this. At that point, what was a new app. And, it dawned on me like what they know about Chicago, what most people know about Chicago is either the bullcrap the national media shows, or they only know a little bit about the neighborhood that they live in. And so, man, I found myself sitting on TikTok watching a dude change oil for 2 minutes, right? Just because I couldn't do it. And so, I'm like, well, maybe if I put the thing I know how to do on TikTok, which is Chicago history, it'll go somewhere. And man, here we are.
Yeah. What was your first, do you remember your first big one?
The first big one, yeah, it was Lower Wacker Drive.
Okay.
Right. Just we drive it every day, but people don't know, who is Wacker? What is Wacker, right?
Yeah.
It's named after Charles Wacker. He was a commissioner for the Chicago World's Fair and the Chicago Plan. In fact, he started Chicago Heights as a suburb, right? Like that, he bought the land, he set it up. And so I just was telling that story, but also making mention how like you get lost when you go on Lower Wacker Drive. And,
Yeah.
that was the first video to blow up. But then I did the history of dibs, and then it was just over with.
Yeah. Can you get into dibs a little bit? I think.
Yeah, especially if you're not from here, right? So after a decent snow, right, we don't play dibs. It's just a little sprinkle. But after a couple inches, here in Chicago, parking is a premium.
Yeah.
And in places that have we got blocks and blocks of single family homes. And so you've been to shoveled yourself out, 2, 3, 4 inches of snow. And what you do is you put a cheer or a cone or whatever you can find in your garage to mark the spot. So that when you come back home, it's dibs. And so you got dibs on that spot. So yeah, that's what dibs is. But it started with the blizzard of 1967, right? Again, just like a melting of perfect timing. The cars were huge in the 60s, right? And then the economy was a little bit better. So we were just starting with the whole 2-car family thing, right? Before that, it didn't matter. It wasn't that many cars per block. So you were going to find a spot. But just when that 67 blizzard hit, dudes had their muscle cars and their family station wagons, and the block parking was tight. And so that's where it comes from. So just telling those origin stories is what got me here.
67, people were like, I had enough. I'm putting the fucking mop in front of the fucking house, right?
The stuff they use is so hilarious. You seen the guy that froze his jeans, right? He got a pair of jeans and dipped them in water and set them outside. And they, in frozen degrees, right, below zero, and it got solid. And then the jeans stood up in the parking spot.
Oh, dude, people are so creative with that shit. Or they're just like, sometimes people will be leaving like valuable stuff out there, like, and it's like, what are you doing?
Pulling out the grill, right?
Yeah, exactly. Someone's gonna take that shit. That's crazy. So that's cool. So you're right though, because I think that's the big thing, especially outsiders. They act like they kind of know what's going on here,
right,
and they just like to grab the cheap headlines and whatnot. So that's I love that. I appreciate that for sure. So that's sweet. And what and then so are you still doing the ComEd thing?
Yep. I'm still working for ComEd. Doing now I just don't sleep anymore, right? Like that's just became the answer. I still work for ComEd. I do neighborhood tours. We take people through various South Side, West Side, North Side neighborhoods, and then I'm pretty full time with the social media content creation.
Nice, man. So are you? What's the what's like your big platform? Are you kind of spread all over the place?
Yeah, I'm trying to just keep it spread pretty equally, right? I'm doing really well on Instagram, and of course TikTok, right? That's primarily where I'm at. But I post everywhere, and I'm trying to grow all those platforms too, and then trying to take it to a larger platform, right? Like creating scripted shows and documentary stuff.
And have you always known like this stuff? Like, have you always just been a sponge for this knowledge, or has this been something you're like, all right, like, hey, I know a lot of this stuff. I'm gonna start learning more, and I'm gonna start like fine tuning my game here.
So now I'm fine tuning my game more and more. But no, I've always been inquisitive, right? Us Chicago guys, after prom you go to Great America or you go to Cedar Point, right?
Yeah.
And I remembered after prom, I hope my wife don't smack me. I had a pretty decent prom date too. So after prom, we went to Great America, and I was upset because I couldn't find anyone to tell me why the town was named Gurnee. Right. So it's just like been who I have historically been. If my 8th grade basketball team played another school, like I was obsessed with like, who is Charles Denning? Right? Like, why does this dude get a school named after him?
Yes.
And so I would answer those questions, though, right? I wouldn't just like have them. I would go home and tear up the Encyclopedia Britannicas. I would go to the library and go through the microfilm. And then my parents recognized that. And so if it has Chicago in the name, they buy it for me.
Yeah.
And but then also my dad was a cop for 32 years, man. He was Mayor Harold Washington's bodyguard. He was on that bodyguard detail.
Oh, no shit.
Eugene Sawyer's, when Kara Mosley Brown was becoming the first black woman senator, he was on that detail. So I've been around a lot of Chicago history.
Oh, wow. You really have. So did you grow up in Auburn Gresham too?
Yeah, never left, man.
Really?
Yeah, grew up on 81st and Troop, went away to Eastern Illinois University.
Oh, okay.
Came back and bought a house in Auburn Gresham, right? That's all I know.
There you go. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Calumet High School.
Okay.
They put me out. Then I went to an alternative high school, and then went away to Eastern, yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice, man. Nice. So what are you thinking now? Because, this series on Friday has been kind of like, I'm kind of laying the groundwork. So 2 weeks ago, I had Alderman Lopez on, and last week I had a former CPD officer on, and I'm just kind of laying, the groundwork and everything about this mayoral race and everything. Yeah. Have you been following it much?
Yeah, very much. I follow it intensely because the leadership at the top matters, and that's ultimately what's going to move our city forward. I think the problem is we're so into question everybody's intentions, right? And that's the yucky part. For me, I think most of the people that are running have pretty good intentions. It's just up to us to figure out who we want to implement their plans, right?
Yeah.
But I'm certainly following it. There's such a stuff, particularly to our mayor is the mayor right now, so that means she's fair for criticism, right? Because no matter who gets that seat, that comes with the job, right? So having said that, on the one hand, right, like I don't dig how tough Lori can be, right? On the other hand, if you grow up 5'1" black gay lady and going through law school and practicing law in Chicago, you have to become mean. Right. Yeah. So, but I do sometimes wish she would compromise. On the other hand, you'd be a lie if you say that there ain't major investment going on the South and West Side. You'd be a lie if you said that 79th Street corridor from the expressway going to Western ain't dramatically changing. You'd be a lie if that Invest Southwest. Formerly, you would hear about city grants and you would not know any of the people that won the grants. And now, over the last 2-3 years, I pretty much know everybody that has received a grant from the city of Chicago to do any type of philanthropic or community work. And that's, you got to acknowledge that too, right? So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, can you go into that a little bit too? Because I guess that's what I wanted to talk about as well. Because I don't think I think it'd be good if people were more knowledgeable about stuff on the South and West Side. Because everyone has their preconceived notions and whatnot. And I don't know, but
even that's the city's fault, man. I'm glad you asked, because let's say you're flying in to be on Barstool, right? And you guys are gonna send the Tesla Uber to get them. and they're walking through O'Hara or Midway, and they pick up one of those Chicago magazines. Nothing in it tells them to go visit the South or the West Side, right? And so where do that attitude come from, right? If the city don't feel good about the South or the West Side, why is anybody else?
Yeah.
But that's the South and West Side, man, is where the history of not only just our city but our country comes from, right? Like that's what really put Chicago on the map. The things that come out of the South and West Side, black and white, right?
Yeah.
And we have to do a better job of lifting it up. I say it all the time that when you know the history of a place, you respect that place, and when you have respect, your perspective changes. So right, you don't necessarily got to agree. Yeah. You don't necessarily got to even want to live there. But if you got respect, right, then how you talk about it gets treated different. And then that actually helps, man.
Yeah, like I think just to name one neighborhood, like I think wasn't Englewood like the most bustling neighborhood like in Chicago at one point?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the 63rd and Halsted had the second highest grossing shopping district behind State Street for 5 decades running. The Secret Service comes from the Englewood neighborhood, right? Alan Pinkerton invents the Secret Service. He comes from Englewood.
Really?
And then, the Englewood even today has the most train intermodal connections in any other spot in this country, right? That translates to jobs and revenue. You know what I mean? That also comes from Englewood. But to your point, like how we talk about Englewood, it's talked about as this crime-ridden thing. And I'm not one of those black dudes that when you talk about like crime and gangs that I won't acknowledge that they suck, and they are present day right now doing sucky stuff. But when you don't talk about how that happened, then you're doing a disservice, right? You guys talk about sports all the time. Y'all don't just dissect this season. Y'all talk about how trading the first round draft pick 2 seasons ago is the reason why we're getting beat up this season, right? Yeah. That's how y'all talk about sports. That's how people, I consider you guys a reputable sports source, right? That knows what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
And y'all talk about everything in historic matters. It is never just what happened this Sunday. Yeah. Nah, it's why did you play dude for that game when you were clearly ahead, and that's why he got the soft injury you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's how you also have to talk about Englewood. And the fact of the matter is that 80% of the black homeowners in Englewood thought they had a mortgage and they had a contract buying. And what's contract buying? It's basically me and you got a 30-year mortgage. If I missed 2 months payments on my mortgage, I could call the bank and say, hey, let me borrow some of that equity that I've gained in the last 20 years to catch myself up. And then that resolves the problem. But in contract buying, you had zero equity. So you could have been paying that contract mortgage on time for 24 years, and then you get sick and miss a payment. The white homeowner then comes and says, you violated the terms. He kicks you out, and then he moves another family in, and he starts that over again. Right? Mm-hmm. What does that do to neighborhood wealth? The equity in homes is how we send our kids to college, right?
Yeah.
And education is the separation between, shitty neighborhoods and not. So
for sure.
If you ain't saying all that when you're talking about Englewood, you're really not talking about Englewood.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's why that's why it's good. You're right. Because what's the famous history phrase? Like, if you don't know, you're doomed to repeat it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why, and how has that been for you? Right. Because if people, having these conversations, you just want to hop on TikTok and talk about dibs, and people are like, asking you all these deep questions. Have you welcomed that?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. Very much so.
Cool. Because I want to make sure too. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but I do think, as sitting here, I would like to have some perspective from someone like you, because I think it's important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I welcome it. I sincerely do. It. I leave space we all should leave space for people to learn more, and that's going to be the thing that lifts our city up. Because what's an absolute fact, man, is no matter what you look like or your ethnicity or your background, if you from this place, you love this place. And the thread in that is our history.
Yeah, no, it is. So what about some of those things in those neighborhoods? So I guess one thing you always hear about, and I guess one thing that catches all the headlines and everything is the O Block.
Mm-hmm.
What is that about?
So that's so O Block in Chicago. We refer to it as that's such an important place, though, right? It's Parkway Gardens is the official name. It's located on 64th and King Drive in the Woodlawn area. And what's so crazy about O Block is it sits on the site of what used to be the White City Amusement Park that was created immediately following the World's Fair. And from its inception to 1944, when it got tore down, they refused to let black folks come to the amusement park, even though they lived 2-3 blocks from it. And instead of opening their gates to let black folks in the amusement park, they tore the place down and closed it. And then on that very ground is what Parkway Gardens is now. And then Parkway Gardens becomes the largest in this country black co-opted apartment space in the country, right? Meaning like condos, right? So Parkway used to be a place that you could buy into and own. Mm-hmm. And then like everything else in the 70s, right? We had the gas embargo and the economy kind of tanked. So that's what happened to the people who were managing the money at Parkway. The city of Chicago's, and so then Parkway says, hey, Chicago, loan us some money so that we can help ourselves. We'll pay it back. We want to remain co-opt owned. And the city said, nah, we'll just take it over and turn it into public housing. Yeah. And then they did. And then they didn't give two craps about it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then because of that, it became this place that the gang started to rule because the city wouldn't protect it, or the city wouldn't, if something breaks in your apartment and you don't fix it, or the city refuses to fix it or allow you to fix it or fine you if you fix it. But then the gangs in the building say, you know what, we're going to fix it and ain't nobody going to do nothing to you. And then it gets fixed. Well, guess what? Right now, they start to take ownership of the place, and that's what happened in O Block. It's referred to as O Block because a guy named Odie lived there, and he was killed. And it proves the point that our kids do care about history because Odie was killed, 2012 maybe.
Oh, really?
Right. And there are people who live in what we refer to as O Block who never met him. Right, but they refer to the place as O Block, right? It's going to be O Block for time immemorial, right?
For sure.
What that means is that they care about history. They care about the people that live there, right? And the people that knew Odie want to make sure that everybody who comes in that area knows that this place is named for Odie, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a lesson to be learned too. Parkway for sure has its challenges, but the challenges were created because the place was ignored. I can't. And then what's crazy is CHA sells it to a private company that's in New York. Right. And they've made probably, without exaggerating, $500 million off of the space in the 20 years that they owned it. You know how much they spent on security? $2 million.
$2 million. That's it.
Of the $200 million, to more than that. I don't want nobody to fact check me and get me wrong. So I will say it's $200 million is what they've made off Parkway. But I know for sure in the entire length of the time that they've owned it, the max amount that they have spent on security is $2 million, and they got forced by the government to even do that. All right.
Wow.
We don't ever talk about that when we talk about O Block. We just say 10 people were shot over there, 4 killed. What are they doing? Put the guns down.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's always a talking point, right?
Yeah.
Because that's primarily like the drill rap. That's kind of like a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
O Block is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I've always in that World's Fair. That's crazy. I did not know how big of a part of that was.
Yeah.
World's Fair was nuts.
Oh my goodness. I wish we need another one though, man. I don't know who to ask, but
dude, right?
We need another one. I don't know why they don't do it anymore.
If you looked that up, we did a podcast on that probably like a couple months ago. So much shit came out of that.
Yeah.
Like so many
everything.
Yeah.
The so many things that we love. From Cracker Jack, right? The Ferris wheel, number 2 pencil.
Yeah,
Vienna beef Polish sausages, hot dogs come out of that. So many things, man.
It was at that.
But it's the little things that don't mention, right? In 1893, they would not allow women to be public sculptors. And so there was this sculptor by the name of Laredo Taft. He worked under Daniel Burnham. Daniel Burnham was the man of the fair, right? He was the head dude. And so Laredo Taft went to Daniel Burnham and he was like, hey, man, I know it's 1893 and we don't let women be sculptors because, it's 1893 and women stink, right? But I need people with nimble fingers to help me with the detail work. And so then Daniel Burnham said, hey, bro, the whole world is coming to Chicago for this World's Fair. I don't care if you use white rabbits. Just get the job done. If you Google white rabbit sculptors, you'll find out that that's the first group ever of women public sculptors in the world, right? That comes from the World's Fair, right? Like the first ever American Muslim mosque, right? The first mosque on American soil is because they built the mosque for the World's Fair, right? And they wanted to be inclusive for the Muslims that came to visit the World's Fair. They would need a place to pray. They pray 5 times a day. So the first ever American mosque was built in our city for the World's Fair.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the World's Fair. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that
H.H. Holmes.
That maniac, dude. That fucking maniac.
Then we would give you the America's first serial killer too, right?
We had to give you that too. That's for sure. So then, if you're going through history, how have you? Do you know like the like you're very good neighborhood centric and stuff like that? Have you been able to like kind of detail like the peaks and valleys of the city?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So like, where would you consider like the city now in the pantheon of how it is? Like, is it in a medium point? Is it at a low point?
It's sadly, man. We're at the medium and we're going to medium low.
Really?
At one point we were knocking at 4 million people in our city, right?
Yeah.
And our population's going the other way.
Yeah.
But what makes me say medium is that scientists, right? They did a study, and Chicago's the most sustainable American city through like 2080. So you know how they say like if an earthquake happens, the right one could take California off the map, or the right hurricane could take Florida off the map. Because of how thoughtful we have been in our city planning, we're considered the most sustainable American city. The projections say we're going to hit like 7-8 million once we get on the other side of 2040, because Lake Michigan is the most sustainable fresh body of water from the Midwest all the way to the Atlantic, right? Mm-hmm. But why? Because we reversed the flow of the Chicago River, 100 plus years ago, making it sustainable, right? Just even we were very early to rooftop gardens. And so a lot of downtowns are still suffering from carbon issues and air qualities. You ain't heard that about Chicago in forever, right? Because it's almost a rule. If you build a new skyscraper, it needs to come with green space on the roof, right? Like that's our forward thinking too. So I'm proud of that part too, right? We got to figure out a way for our population to stop leaving, because we need that tax base, right? But other than that, I think we, like I said, right about medium, and we need to be careful to not be going down, because that population dip radiates out.
What was like what decade or what period was like a very low point?
As far as just like in our, what sucked really, really bad is them teens, man.
Yeah.
1910 and like 1919 was a bad time for us. But we were on the other side of the rolling 20s. The roaring 20s, right? So the economy kind of sucked, but then race relations here were the worst they ever were, like even worse than they are today. And so that rate, at least we got like Instagram and podcasts to like binge out on, so we ain't got to face that world. That was it, right? The race relations and the teens, and so that part kind of sucked.
Yeah. What about the high? What do you think was our peak?
We got the 50s were very, very good in the city. The 20s, of course, sad to say, man, Al Capone and them's prohibition put so much money into the economy. It was really, really ridiculous. They no lie, they like subsidized 1/3 of the police department's salary during the 20s.
Really?
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's crazy. Fucking Al Capone, man.
Man, that dude.
Did they sell his house?
Yeah, no, somebody lives in it now.
Really?
Yeah.
It's got like a fucking hideout in the basement.
Yeah.
Right?
He got a couple of those spots around here. I mean, people are always finding old Al Capone stuff.
That's crazy.
He's not even my favorite though. Not to glorify that kind of thing in any way, but we spend way too much time talking about Al, and we don't talk about Big Tuna enough.
What's up with Big Tuna?
Well, shit, Tony Arcado, man, he got, and talking to you guys, he got like 2 nephews or great nephews in the NFL. Right?
Oh yeah, the Bosas, right?
Yeah.
The Bosas, and then what's his name? Kumaro, I think. He played for the Packers, right? I think he was related to him too.
Yeah. Again, not to glorify that at all, but he it's supposedly they call him Joey Batters, right? For that famous scene in Untouchables when Al Capone's sitting there and he hits the guy with the bats. They said that was Tony Arcado who did that. But that he from the 20s to the 80s, and he doesn't spend a night in jail.
That's
you watch Casino, that's him.
Yeah.
Right. That he put that whole play in motion, right?
Well, Spilatro is
the psycho,
too.
but Arcado is the one who says simple Spilatro out there.
Yeah. He was interesting for sure. He had the meatball place over there on Ogden and Grand and Ogden over there. Yeah, that I always heard about that. He do you think that's around still at all?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna say allegedly, right? Because hey, I like my bus.
Yeah.
But I for sure, I don't think that's going. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. But see, that's the thing, right? Is that too is a part of the Chicago way, the underground economy. It just sadly only one kind of gets highlighted in the news as the blight of the city, right? But if you go to Chinatown, there's an underground economy that's like really, really bustling. If you go to Little Village, there's an underground economy. And not just even on the illegal side, but just on the Chicago's such a city of community, neighborhoods, right? And our neighborhoods are just incubators of stuff, right? And just, as opposed to paying for services somewhere else, you may know a guy in your neighborhood that does the thing,
Yeah. The underground economy.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to send someone under the river, but I've heard about some stuff about the underground economies.
Oh man, it's a lot of them. Our most infamous one, we had the nation's highest fake ID ring coming out of Pilsen back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm not like ratting on anybody because everybody's already locked up and the thing had already happened. But you want to go down like a good wormhole, Google, fake IDs in Little Village in Pilsen. It was the greatest ring, and it lasted for decades. Every college student from Notre Dame to Madison to you name it, they all had one out of Chicago.
Which were they using a different state or were they?
No, it was Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah,
makes sense, dude.
Even that, right? Our governor went to jail out of that ring, right? The George Ryan, because when they was making fake CDLs and they gave a dude a fake CDL and he didn't know how to drive it, and sadly he caused like a deadly accident. That's what sent George Ryan to jail.
No shit.
Yeah.
Why do we have so many corrupt politicians?
Oh my goodness, dude. And it's been that way but see, that's what I'm saying. When something's in your fabric, in the way that you start, right? If you're a Italian American, you've never made bad pasta or bread in your life. Right, like it's in you. Yeah. If you're the Italian in your friend group, you're the one all the friends ask to cook, right? Because it's in your fabric, right? And sadly, some stuff is in our fabric. The reason Chicago's not in Wisconsin and it's actually is in Illinois is because of bribery and corruption, right? Like we didn't have enough people to make a state. You needed when they were, to enter into statehood. I think maybe you needed 10,000 people, and at that time in 1818, Illinois might have had 5,000. So those dudes started counting cows, dead people. They stole 51 miles of the Wisconsin territory and claimed it as Illinois, all to make Illinois a state, right? So, like, that's how we're born. We got the most, Illinois and Chicago has the most arrested officials than any other city by, like, double.
I believe that.
It's a true thing.
Yeah.
They don't have an accurate count of how many aldermen have been arrested.
Really?
Yeah, not because it's been too few, it's been too many. They don't have an accurate count.
I believe that, dude. I mean, look at Blago, dude. He's jumping around somewhere right now, right? He's on a nice little morning jog.
Yeah. I'm sure he's happy. I thought they gave him too much time for.
What did he get?
Like 14 years.
Yeah,
Trump had to let him out. Like that's a lot for.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah, they gave him 14. They were trying to like set a message for him. I thought it was a little excessive.
Yeah, probably, but at some point, like, how many fucking people we gonna have be corrupt?
But
right?
that's what I'm saying. But even that, right? I'm a historian. So formally, states elected their senators for the right. So the Illinois state legislator would elect 2 people to send to the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And it was an Illinois senator who had bribed the Illinois legislator to pick him. The Tribune found out, and they reported an expose, and then Congress voted to change it to where the people now vote for senators. So, our corruption and changed the dang on Constitution around here, man.
Right.
No,
I feel like there's a lot of that shit.
It's layered.
Yeah, dude. Then like the machine shit. There's so much Chicago shit that happens. So.
I love you heard what Jimmy Carter says about the machine though?
No.
It's beautiful. Jimmy Carter said in New York, if a street light goes out, it's going to be out forever because no one knows who's the hell supposed to be the dude to change the street light. But in Chicago, if a street light goes out, everyone knows who the street light will be fixed tomorrow because everyone knows who that area belongs to because that dude got the job because he voted for some alderman. You know what I mean? Like our patronage and that.
Yes.
So on the one hand, like, yeah, the machine, I personally think the machine is bad when it's not inclusive, right?
Yeah.
Like when all the city jobs go to, no Asian folks are getting them or no Mexican folks are getting them, right? Like that kind of sucks. But I think there was some, you shouldn't get a job because you're voting for somebody or you're a part of the team. But I do think once you get elected, you should be able to pick your own team. And if you're putting people in position that's getting stuff done, Daley was a little racist, but like there are certain aspects, even the most pro-blackest granny in the back of the black church with a big church hat on still has like a lot of nice stuff to say about Daley, old man Daley, because of how structured things were, right? Like you would want him to cut you in on it, right? We all do, right? Make it equitable, but the way he ran the city did allow for you to know exactly who you needed to talk to fix a problem, and then problems got fixed.
So you are pro the alderman system then?
Yeah, I think they have a little too much power, but I do think the neighborhood should flow through the alderman.
Yeah, you're right though. It is a good way to know who to talk to or something if you need something.
Yeah, and it's on us, the people. Like once we elect them, it's kind of like we fall on our laurels and forget we can move them.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like once they get that seat, we get scared of them. And it's like they should listen to us more now.
Nah, yeah, you're right. Well, I think that's happening now. I think it feels like more people are running for those spots too, right?
Yeah.
It feels like a little more competitive.
Good
now.
changing of the guard.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
I do think aldermen should have a term limit. I think everybody should though, right? Like,
yeah.
I think 3 terms and you're out, bro. Like baseball.
Yeah.
You can't if the thing you wanted to do ain't happening in 12 years, it probably ain't gonna fucking happen, right?
Yeah, it's tough on right. You're damned if you do, because it's like if you get a great one, then it's like if you're doing, you never want to leave. But if it's bad, it's like term limit. So
yeah, but
you're damned if you don't.
This thing, Barstool, right? Barstool Chicago will live better as if like as soon as y'all engineers start to get that notice and Hollywood wants to pull him. What if y'all had like the intern that he was training? Mm-hmm. So you like, okay, you hate to see him go, but you're going to kind of be straight, right? Yeah. And I see a little bit of that too. The term limits would force, say the good ones that we like. Like, you got to get you a right-hand man, bro. Because you only got 12 years and then hopefully you've groomed somebody.
Yeah. No, that's a good way too. That's a good way to look at it too.
Because then it's training, right? You might get 12 years of training to then be an alderman for 12 years.
Yeah. That's a long apprenticeship.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a long answer. But you're right. You could put a good person in that spot and, prep him to be the heir apparent for sure. So, I don't know. What do you think is the most underrated neighborhood in Chicago?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is tough. Underrated. It's a little boring, but Edison Park.
Oh.
It's very underrated, just as far as like their grease spots where you get, you know, their food spots are amazing, right?
That's where I live.
Oh my God! Like, so then you know, right? You know, they got some pretty good hole in the wall food spots up there, man. It's like very low key, and you know, it's good schools. It's picturesque up that way, right? It's sort of suburban. You know, I think Edison Park is certainly a sleeper as it relates to Chicago neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We talk about Pullman, but I don't think people actually go over there and look at it, right? Like Pullman is amazing to look at. I know I'm a history nerd, but the underground infrastructure that they're using over there right now, the sewers and all that stuff, was Solomon Brennan designed that in 1881. Right, like just that forward thinking is why Pullman is still working. It was designed to last forever.
Pullman, all right.
Yeah, go to Pullman.
Edison Park's beautiful, but you're right. So that's why I live there. But as far as food, obviously I'm from Dunning,
okay,
Belmont Heights area.
Yeah.
What would you consider Harlem, Belmont, Irving, and Cumberland? That little area. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't know the place. I almost want to call it O'Hara.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's like it's a big debate I have. I grew up there. I just call it Hiawatha Park. It's still the city, but that's just the park we grew up at, and we don't even know what the fuck it's called. It's Dunning or Belmont Heights, one of the two. But there's better food spots there than Edison Park. But
okay.
But it's still the northwest side of the city. But it all kind of blends in.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great spot for sure.
You know Edison Park name story, right?
I watched the video you
Yeah.
put up the other day, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You could tell it. I think that'd be interesting too.
Yeah, well, they were Canfield for a little while, and then property developer plotted out a couple blocks worth of houses, and then he put 3 street lights there. And this is in the 1880s. It's street lights is a very new thing, and so they become one of the first Chicago suburbs to have electrified streets. And so because of that, they decided they're going to change their name. They write Thomas Edison a letter and say, hey, we want to name our village after you. We're going to name it Edison Park. And of course he says, yeah, absolutely, please name it after me. And as a matter of fact, when you guys do the ribbon cutting ceremony, I'll be there. And so they do, and they file all the paperwork with the state, and then the day comes, and of course he doesn't show up because he was busy.
Fucking Thomas Edison no-showed Edison Park.
Yeah, it did him bogus.
That's crazy. All right, so that's underrated. What's your I wanted to offer you a food question. What you got an underrated food spot? What's your
I'm a big fan of Flacco's Tacos on Polk in Dearborn.
Okay.
They're really, really good. The top tier burger, bro, Burger Point on 19th and State.
Okay. It's
really, really amazing. Bureau Bar, if you want some lamb chops, they're on 21st. They're like right next to Reggie's. Bureau Bar is oh my God, if you like lamb chops. You know, Manny's is a Chicago staple, man. You got to go to Manny's and get a sandwich or a soup from out of there. You know, I'm really, really big on that. And then I'm a South Sider, man. I'm trying to bring people to the South Side, so you could get a great breakfast at Pearl's Place on 39th in Michigan.
Pearl's Place, all right. And then I do want to talk about too. So, is there any social programs or anything you know of that people could kind of get involved with and whatnot on the South and West Side? Is there anything people could look into?
That's a great question, man. I really appreciate that. Depending on whereabout that you are on the South and West Side, I'll take the opportunity to promote mine. I have Chicago Mahogany Foundation. And what we do is so you buy a tour and you take a neighborhood tour on the for-profit side, and we take that money and we give school kids neighborhood tours. You know, kids will go to Irvin Mollison in Bronzeville and never know who Irvin Mollison is, right? He was a civil rights attorney and a really important one. And Irvin Mollison sits on 44th Street. Louis Armstrong lived on 44th Street. You guys being sports heads, there's the Mabel Banks home where, because they wouldn't let the black players stay downtown, people like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson's would have to stay at her boarding house when they played the Negro League in Chicago. And that house is still standing. And so what I found is we get a bunch of kids on the bus and they laughing and they joking and they're not paying attention. And by the end of the tour, they're wondering why the city hasn't rebuilt this, or why do their blocks look like this, or why isn't there a sign letting the world know that house music was created in this spot, or that gospel music was created in this spot, or that there was a Civil War prisoner camp, Confederate prison camp on 35th or 32nd and Calumet that nobody talks about. Like they're so intrigued by that. And then the next thing happens is, well, maybe you won't shoot at somebody on a block that you respect. Like, you know what? I ain't going to do it here. And then that goes to, well, I ain't going to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It goes to, maybe you don't care where you're littering to. Nah, G, don't litter right there. That's where, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams stayed, man. That's the first person to create an open heart surgery, right? Like that. I lived in the hood the entirety of my house. That happens when the most thuggiest of thug dude has that information. He tells the little dudes, right? And that don't make him commit or not commit crimes any less or any more, but they don't do it in that spot where he say don't do that shit.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is grow more spots where they say don't do that shit. And then my block, my hood, my city does amazing work. If you don't want to come take a trip to North Lawndale or Bronzeville or Roseland, we take these tours everywhere, and we take kids. So you come learn about the history, and then your money helps us take school kids, right? And then my block, my hood, my city, they do similar work, but they also do violence mitigation. So if someone is shot, they rush to the scene to try to convince the other folks not to seek vengeance, right? And the way that a lot of times that works is money. A lot of times we don't think about that. If you kill my best friend, I might want some vengeance in that moment, for real. But if somebody can come and take me and give me a hotel in Detroit for the weekend and give me time to cry and punch the wall and kick the bed and do all these things that I need to do, that my block, my hood, they do that type of stuff, right?
Wow.
They'll jump in and kind of just, hug you through your grief. So that, and they take them to Bulls games and Blackhawks games. They knock on doors and say, hey, if you can't afford the Halloween candy, we're going to give you this bag, pre-sealed, of course, so that when kids come, they can knock on your door and get to know you. So I love what Jamal Cole is doing.
So they just try to stop that emotional response.
Yeah.
To that.
And that's really all it takes, right? Because even after you do the thing, you ain't bringing your friend back. Right now you're a target. You might go to jail. It goes on and on. But what if at that onset, even if they jump over there sometimes when people just get shot at, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get hit, but now you're mad. What if you get pulled out of that situation for 72 hours, right? There's so many black kids. I love the Blackhawks. They gave me 50 tickets to any game I want because they want to see more black kids at hockey matches, right? Like that's that. So when people say, hey, my cousin got jumped in school in Simeon, I'll be like, yo, I got 2 tickets for y'all. Just tell me what Hawks game y'all want to go to. I'm going to email the Hawks. And removal from that situation allows the emotions to calm down, right? And then you get to realize, like, man, life is pretty good if you ain't dealing with that kind of stuff, right? There are always going to be challenges, man, but none of those cats want to be out there. They just feel like there's nothing else that they can do.
Yeah.
Is
that so? That's Chicago Mahogany, you said? Chicago Mahogany Foundation.
And that's the website too, ChicagoMahoganyFoundation.org. And then I'm on all social media platforms, the number 6, FIGGA_Dilla, 6 Figure Dilla.
Gotcha. Well, that's great, man. That's great. And, you need anything from us, let us know, man. I'm down to help out and do what I
appreciate
can too,
that.
dude. So it was great to chat, and I'd love to have you back, talk more about
this.
Yeah,
stuff anytime. Too. Me and Thomas Lennon from Reno 911, Lieutenant Dangle, we're creating a show. So we got like pitch meetings, all that other kind of stuff. I think by like August I'll be able to like say what the title is and all that other kind of stuff.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, go follow that. Go check into those social organizations, and Dilla, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all, bro.
All right, everybody. That's it for today. That's it for this week. We'll catch you guys on Monday. We'll see you then.